Well, I mean, I think that besides the responsibilities that still have to be determined by the judiciary, the most striking thing of this story is mostly the reaction of the government to the initial reaction of the government after the disaster. The fact that they've immediately taken Atlantia and the investor as the scapegoat, or they're trying to bring in the European Commission, which is their usual target, might end up in the long run undermining the confidence of investors into Italian institutions, and if this proceed, could have long-lasting effects on investor sentiment.
The relationship between this kind of government, a populist government, a government which many think will be dysfunctional, a government that many people think will fail in budget negotiations to satiate both the EU and various parties, including the ECB as well. It's going to have a tortuous relationship with business anyway. Is this underlining this event, and as tragic as the event is, looking at the relationship between government and business and what needs to be done in Italy, is this underlining just how tough things are going to be going forward?
Well, I think that this episode is just one of a series. For example, we can see the same, more or less the same approach in the way that they've been dealing with Ilva, the steel plant in Puglia, with ArcelorMittal, and we are seeing how they are behaving in other infrastructure projects.
Sure. But let me just ask, I mean, you've spent a lot of time in Italy, you've written great pieces about various parts of the economy as well, and I'll just bring in a little bit of my own reference as well. I was at a spring workshop in Ambrosetti on Como, and there was a strenuous debate amongst some very senior businessmen and politicians in the room, and it was a closed shop, about the role of family in Italian business, about the way that family links control a lot of individual companies and networks of companies and conglomerates as well. I mean, do you recognise this as a unique Italian situation which sometimes actually gets in the way of proper business practices in the 21st century? Willem?
I think you're referencing Benetton there, are you?
Well, I'm referencing Benetton, but I'm referencing a whole host of families.
I think what's very Italian about this,
it could be someone else. But
what's very Italian about the situation, in terms of the way that you could try to apportion responsibility for an incident like this, is everything is so fragmented. You have this dispute constantly between national, provincial and local governments when it comes to any kind of spending. And you also, in things like infrastructure, have a massive distinction between public and private spending. So what you see here with a bridge like this is it's controlled on a day-to-day basis by a private company. But if you look across the entire country, you have 24 different private operators responsible for large stretches of the Italian motorways. You have different agencies, and you have no single oversight, no regulator that can enforce any of the rules on infrastructure repairs and maintenance. And if you look forward into the investigation to this, that's going to be a huge, huge argument that Atlantia can make on their behalf potentially, and obviously the government will try and make.
You make some valid points, but I did actually mean what I said about family networks and their influence on Italian politics and their influence on the corporate setup, now whether it be in the private sector or indeed on the listed public sector as well. Do you recognise that scenario, Davide?
Well, I mean, the family businesses are a huge proportion of Italian businesses overall. Yeah, there are many interlinkages between family.
But is that healthy for a competitive Italy? And it was a debate that was held, so again, I'm asking the question, is it healthy for Italian business and indeed transparent politics in the 21st century? Because I think the parties in government have been strenuous in saying we've never taken money from Benetton, we're perhaps the only ones who never have.
Well, I mean, it's very hard to say because in principle this shouldn't be, family ownership is seen as a drag on the Italian business sector, but it very much depends on a case-by-case basis. When you reach the size of the Benetton group, you really have a holding company having stakes in other companies that are managed by third-party management that, of course, has to respond to the family eventually. And yeah, I mean, this concentration of power in the hand of a single group of people that are related can be stronger than the interest of dispersed ownership, but I'm not entirely convinced that the political ties with these families are a big problem at the moment.
Okay.
I mean, I think that they're trying to make it a big problem, but they're not in economic terms.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.